Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. As some of my regular viewers already know, one deck that I like revisiting from time to time is Gem Knight. The first showcase that I had with this strategy in this channel was mainly as an engine or a hybrid to support recent strategies that were released in the TCG. The first iteration I did was with the Tistina archetype and that debuted in Duelist Nexus, which had a very limited pool of cards that made it a standalone strategy, but as a large board breaking engine, it synergized really well with Mech Knights because of its attribute, because of the game plan that you kind of wanted to do with the decks, and just the natural ability of Gem Knights going second because of their key cards relying on your opponent controlling monsters. Then we had the release of the Soul Burning Volcano, which bolstered the volcanic strategy, which also gave an identity to Gem Knight due to some of its starters aiding to what Gem Knight predicated to do in the past, which was FTKing. As I kept experimenting with Gem Knights, I just realized that there are enough ways to make Gem Knights a playable deck. However, we still have another problem. The Gem Knight archetype is very strong and hyperbolic. However, finding the right non-engine and the hybrid cards that make this a standalone strategy is not as easy as it is with other decks that are viable in the format. When you have a Xenolock tied into your win condition or your strategy, your deck is probably not going to do as well as those decks that do not have those limitations, just because they are more free to play non-engine, they are more free into playing like other cards, and like when you play a deck in this format, you need to make sure that your deck is resourceful at what it does, is also consistent at what it wants to do, but it's also strong enough that it can play going first or second. And if that's not enough for your deck, then you have to play non-engine to circumvent that. Gem Knights have this issue that is very uncommon for a lot of decks that we already see. The deck strategy when going first is solely to FTK. Not many. There are no cards in the Gem Knight archetype that give you like monster interruption as a ability in your opponent's turn if you go first. If you go second, the deck is a lot stronger because a lot of their cards are like a lot more viable because your opponent pretty much is forced to commit to a board if they go first, which is where their win conditions and interruptions come in. However, sometimes blowout cards or like non-engine spots that we don't have in our deck is not enough to make it so we can do what we want with Gem Knights if we go second. And that kind of makes it very awkward for this makes it very awkward for like decks like these, because in the end there are just some strategies that will just either lock you out of the game or will just not let you do your what your deck wants to do outright. This deck is not fully solved as of yet. If it was, you probably would have seen it like in regionals or in other events. However, that did not stop me from experimenting or finding ways that can make this strategy viable. So what I'm going to showcase here is a hand that is not Gem Knight cards. However, these are cards that also work with the Gem Knight archetype and tries to help with what you want to do with the deck. So what I'm going to do is going to experiment with this hand, see how far it takes me, and then I'll go after that, just show like reach my hypothesis and tell you like what is my stance on this deck and can it still be viable despite the environment. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin. Our hand consists of Analyzer, Fenrir, Talent, Researcher, and Motorbike. As we go along, I pretty much will explain why these cards are here. I might show a deck profile after. It all depends. No promises though. But for now, something that is very obvious, we're going to summon Fenrir, and we're going to add with Fenrir. The reason Fenrir is here in the deck is because it is a card that pretty much just works either going first or going second. It does not stop you from anything that you want to do with the Gem Knight deck. And it's just a very strong card. And when you're trying to build decks that have like Xenologs or decks that like are not as high tier, you need to play cards like Fenrir. Like otherwise, like if your strategy gets halted on the spot, or like you need to like end on a way for your opponent to disrupt, to like have to play against your interruptions. This is just a very strong card in itself. Now what we're going to do is we're going to activate the motorbike. So now let's talk about the Super Heavy Samurai engine. This engine is here for two reasons. The first reason is like it gives us the access of a monster that also gives us cards to our opponent, and giving cards to our opponents are very important in Gem Knights because one of the Gem Knights win condition are two cards that rely on your opponent controlling monsters. So now we're going to resolve the Big Benkei. Big Benkei is going to add as a monster. The monster we're going to add is Stealthy. Since we have no spell and traps, we can special assault Stealthy from the deck. I mean from the hand. And now we're going to synchro summon. And this is another really cool thing about the Super Heavy Samurai stuff. It gives you a full pendulum summon. So giving you a full pendulum summon means that whatever monsters you have in your hand that you kind of want to cheat out in order to just keep playing, you can just summon them outright. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add Blackguard into our hand. Now what we're going to do is we're going to activate the Black Garden, and we already committed we still have not committed our normal summon. That's important. Since we have not committed our normal summon, we have two options: either normal summon right now or just do our pendulum summon. I think what we're going to do is we're going to do our pendulum summon. And now we're going to excavate to see if we get to a Gem Knight cards. If we do get to a Gem Knight cards, then we're going to keep going. If not, then I'm just going to show you other stuff that we can do with the board that we have and the cards that we already have on hand. Our opponent gets a token because of Black Garden. Now we're going to mill 5. And when you look at that, we actually got to rock monsters. We actually got to some of the Gem Knights. So the card we're going to summon here is the Gem Armadillo. The reason we're doing that specifically is because that monster is level 4. And we are playing something in this extra deck that's going to let us keep going. We're going to give 2 more tokens to our opponent. 1 from the summon of Analyzer and 1 from the Armadillo that was summoned. And the monster we're going to make now is Gallant Granite. Gallant Granite is going to summon, and the reason why we pendulum summoning instead of normal summoning is important because with Gallant Granite we're going to search for Gem Armadillo. Now before we summon the Gem Armadillo, we're going to excavate again. We're going to use Researcher's effect. This time we whiffed. There are no Gem Knight cards, there are no rock monsters in general. So now what we're going to do is, before the summon of Gem Armadillo, we're going to link all of these monsters. And we're going to make Appaloosa. Take note, because of Black Garden, the Appaloosa has 1600 attack and not 3200. So you don't have 4 negates, you actually only have 2 negates. But just summoning a monster that can like help you with your opponent's hand traps always helps. We're going to summon Armadillo. We're going to give us the 5th token to our opponent, and now Gem Armadillo is going to give us Gem Knight Quartz. Before Power of the Elements came out, Gem Armadillo was pretty much a mediocre monster. Like it searched you a Gem Knight, but like the Gem Knight that you grabbed with Armadillo was not a real starter. But now with the inclusion of Gem Knight Quartz in the deck, like in the game, now Gem Armadillo is a really strong card because it gives us access to Scatter Fusion. So what we're going to do here, we're going to set the Scatter Fusion. We're now locked into Gem Knights from the extra deck because of the effect of Quartz. So, but that doesn't matter because the rest of the plays that we're going to do are going to be Gem Knight plays. So now what we're going to do, we're going to activate the Scatter Fusion. Scatter Fusion is going to summon a Seraphinite, and the reason we're summoning Seraphinite specifically is because one of the monsters that we're going to send is going to be Crystal Rose. Crystal Rose is kind of essential because if you haven't guessed it by now, we're going to FTK our opponent. So now what we're going to do is we're going to link away the Seraphinite and their Armadillo. That's going to summon us the Phantom Quartz. Phantom Quartz is going to trigger, and we're going to grab Gem Knight Fusion. Now what we're going to do is we're going to banish the Seraphinite, and we're going to summon the Crystal Rose. And this is why using Crystal Rose specifically was very important, because Crystal Rose is going to enable us the rest of the tools that we need for our FTK. So Brilliant Rose is going to send Lazuli. Lazuli is going to trigger, and we're going to grab us Gem Knight Lapis. Now what we're going to do is we're going to activate the Brilliant Fusion. The Gem Knight Fusion rather. Is going to summon us. It's going to send us Crystal Rose and the Lazuli, and that's going to summon us Lady Lapis Lazuli. Why is this card not at 1 and Master Diamond is at 1? Is beyond Konami's recognition and not ours. However, it does not stop us from doing like this FTK. Now that that's done, we're going to declare the Gem Knight Fusion again. We're going to banish. Let us banish the Quartz. We're going to grab this to hand. And now what we're going to do is we're going to activate Phantom Quartz. We're going to pay 1,000. We're going to return these to the extra or to the deck. This, and this. And you know what pretty much sparked me into like playing Gem Knights in the first place is there is a common like wording that I hear people say, and that wording is how there are custom cards in this game. This is one of the first quote-unquote custom cards we've had in the game. Like, this is a searcher, this is a fusion summon, the monster that you use to fuse for it are expendable resources, you're fusing from graveyard or banished back into your deck. Like, the monsters that you summon with this are monsters that just enable like really strong plays. Like this, for example, lets you summon a monster ignoring summoning conditions. Like, if people want to talk about custom cards, like, I think we've had custom cards for a already long time. That being said, enough rambling. We're going to do Lapis Lazuli's effect. We're going to send another copy of Lapis Lazuli, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 monsters on like on the board. That is 4,500 damage. Now what we're going to do is we're going to activate Lady Brilliant Diamond. We're going to tribute any of the Gem Knights, doesn't matter which, in order to summon Master Diamond. Master Diamond is limited, but it's not bad, so we're going to use this effect, banish the lapis lazuli, and now its effect is lapis lazuli, and we burn for 4,500 again. And yeah, a card that had no Gem Knight cards at all gave us an FTK. So things to bring up. This is not going to happen every game. The deck still is not super consistent at pulling off the FTK every single time. However, we're getting closer and closer and closer to having a strategy that can do this very, very consistently. And it's only a matter of time until like somebody figures out like a perfect form. Well, I'm not gonna say perfect formula, but a formula for a deck like this to exist. Because once a deck like this exists and becomes popular, people are going to hard counter it. Because right now, if you look at the format, outside of Droll and Logbird, Infinite Impermanence, and maybe Ash Blossom, there are no really strong counters to like what I'm doing. And assuming that they are those counters and people actually do draw them, like it's kind of important just seeing the viability of other cards that can exist that can just like still interrupt your opponent even though you didn't get to your FTK. Like Gemini Fenrir is already a really good strong monster. You have cards like Naturia Beast, and in those, for those wondering, you can actually make Naturia Beast really easily if you like get into a Gemini plus this, or summon Analyzer and use something like Lazuli or Stealthy to as well. Like your super heavy samurai engine also helps you get to this. Like Baguska is another monster that's really problematic if you summon it. Like not many decks can out this card if they don't have their non-engine cards. So yeah, as I keep experimenting with this deck, like eventually I probably will take it to a local or probably will take it to somewhere, because it's only a matter of time till we find like something that just is way too strong and your opponent has to think twice or even respect it, like once it's introduced in the format. We're already seeing that with decks like Chimera and like Rescue Ace. Like those strategies, like right after Dune showed up, they just became more and more viable. They had a game plan. They had a really strong win condition that your opponent pretty much had to respect. And now you see them topping like left and right. I'm not saying that Gem Knight fits into that category. However, like it's always really important and really good to experiment, because with good player knowledge, you can make decks like this very, very viable. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody plays like the Bestial Punk, like Thunder Dragon, Danger Chaos pile deck and tries to win an event with it. Just because those engines all sounds like really strong engines, and if somebody like makes it very valuable, the fact that not many people know like what all of those cards do together, just is going to give whomever is playing it a strong advantage. But yeah, I hope you found this video fascinating. I hope you found this to your liking. Keep practicing and keep doing.